I want to stay with this topic, though, of sort of political culture wars that are happening all over the West. And what we see this past week, I mean, the biggest news story in the world was just the unspeakable, horrible tragedy that happened in Uvalde, Texas. Still trying to put together the details of that. Harrison, you and I were talking before air about this new timeline that came out that's just really unconscionable. The idea that the police waited over an hour before going in to stop this gunman and waiting for backup, and while parents were frantically urging them to go inside. For me, when I look at the story, I see a picture of a very isolated and disgruntled and mentally ill young man with no father in the picture, a mother who was using drugs. He shot his own grandmother. Like, there's severe dysfunction in this young man's life. Interestingly, an 18-year-old male shooter, exactly the same profile as the shooter in Buffalo, New York, in terms of age and gender. It seems to me that there's a broader societal problems. There's probably policing problems. There's definite social breakdown. This guy spent a lot of time on social media sites like Reddit and Instagram. There's so many things that you can analyze and try to understand. I mean, you can't understand a horrible, unspeakable tragedy. You never will. But it's interesting how the political left and the news media sort of knee-jerk reaction is to go straight to gun control. In the case of Buffalo, they went straight to white supremacists, evil right wingers. They don't want to. They take like the most simplistic perspective and use it as a political weapon against the public instead of really trying to understand what happened, understand what went wrong. It seems like Uvalde was a pretty horrific case of police inaction, and I'm saying this as someone who is generally very pro-police. But when I read the details there, it's really just very difficult to understand what was going on in that chaotic scene. All this is just to say that whenever there's a big tragedy that's easily exploitable by Democrats in the U.S., it just seems to quickly make its way up to Canada. So we saw this a few weeks ago with the Roe versus Wade case, where all of a sudden Justin Trudeau used that as an example to say that he was going to provide more abortions in Canada and that they were going to allow Americans to come up to Canada to have abortions. When it came to the Buffalo shooter, instantly they were trying to tie the trucker convoy and this guy, Pat King, and then Pierre Poilievre to the murderer. And then now with Uvalde, almost instinct, like knee-jerk reaction, and the media run with it, of course. We saw the Ontario Liberal leader here in Ontario, Stephen Del Duca, putting out this tweet saying what happened at Robb Elementary School in Texas is absolutely horrific. My heart breaks for these children and teachers who've lost their lives. The need for gun control has never been clearer. And, calling for more gun control in Canada. Likewise, there's this CTV City News story saying new gun control measures coming in Canada, Trudeau says. So he's already, he doesn't have a specific policy in mind, but he's ready to pounce, ready to capitalize on the horrible tragedies that are happening in the United States by somehow pretending that the gun rules in Texas are anything remotely similar to the gun laws in Ontario, or that the underlying social problems that are occurring in the United States. Look, some of them do occur in Canada. Some of them, the problem with societal breakdown, with family breakdown, the problem with isolation, especially during COVID, and these young isolated men, being told whatever they're told that makes them go so deranged, and then spending a bunch of time on social media. That was a problem before. It's been exacerbated by the lockdowns. But to sort of import these culture wars into Canada, pretend it's the exact same thing. It's just so callous. Like, I don't know how else to describe it, Harrison. It's so callous. It's like they're just manipulating people who have emotional takes on these issues that don't think very deeply about them. Their knee-jerk reaction is let's ban all guns, or let's make sure that abortions are codified in our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, or something like that. Like they have a very superficial reaction, and then the Liberals capitalize on it, and the media like cheers and applause for them. It's like a pet peeve. It's so callous. What do you think?
Yeah, and I think it's a really bad practice. I don't think it does anyone in Canada any good when politicians jump on horrible tragedies to push their narratives when things are so fresh. We knew this was going to come because it always does, right, Candace? It always comes when there's something that is dominating the news cycle. There's almost this need for figures in Canada to do something about it and to ride that wave. And the horrible takes on the shooting in Texas obviously don't just stop with with Stephen Del Duca's comment about the need for more gun control. The idea that there can be any comparison to the issues we're seeing in the United States, these ongoing horrible shootings at schools, that is a United States thing. The idea that we can even compare any of that to what happens in Canada is just not accurate. We don't have that problem in Canada. We have other problems, significant problems. But the idea that we can ride this and say, well, because of that, because of what happened in Texas, we need to push for stricter Canadian gun laws. I think it's frankly disgusting because these parents and these students who had classmates and family and children taken from them, and teachers who had lost their lives, these people should be left alone. Their tragedies should not be used to push political narratives.